Welcome back in Sports Radio 950 KJR. Ian Furness with you on a Tuesday afternoon. John Lund joins us this week. We visit brought to you by Cascade Ice Water, in full transparency, I gotta paint the picture here at the Furness house. All right, because Lund, it's just you and your son George, right? But at our house,
and he's in school apparently.
Yeah,
right
well,
now.
you can tell me what that's all about, because as we do this and tape this, my son is starting his first day of school, his senior year online. And I've been moved twice already this morning for different Zoom calls. My wife took over the office about 2 months ago. None of us are allowed in there because she does important stuff. School's starting, so he's in. I thought he was in where I'm at.
So you're third.
So he just moved me again. Oh, I'm so far down the depth chart. It's mama, then son, and then me. That's the depth chart for like where you're going to set up for your Zoom calls in the morning. God, this is the new reality of 2020, isn't it?
It is. It's hard because you got the kid, and if you have a dog or something, especially because I do my show out of my house, just like, so you got to put that kid somewhere because of like the UPS guy or something knocks on the door, the thing goes, and everybody, like, I was in the middle of an interview last week and they're like, really? What's wrong? Like, what is wrong with you? It's like, look, this is where it is. At least we don't have young kids.
Yeah.
Like, I have friends with young kids who actually have to watch their kids, get them on Zoom, teach the lessons. Are you kidding me?
Oh,
no way.
My daughter's a third grade teacher. My daughter's a third grade teacher. I don't know how they're going to do it. I mean, at least with the older kids, I mean, they're used to technology and they're
My kid doesn't need my help.
Yeah, our guy, he could probably set our stuff up. I wouldn't even know what I'm doing. I don't even know what half this stuff is. I mean, what are the tips though? By the way, like, do you know your kid's always online studying and doing school, or is he screwing off?
No, I think it's a combination of everything. He started a week ago, and the problem
he's your
I had
kid.
yesterday
At the end of the day,
was,
he's your kid. So
right, and he's going to screw around. Although I got to be honest with you, he gets great grades, and I have no idea why or how. Definitely mom's side. But so yesterday, he's been in for about a week, and it's the MLB trade deadline, as you well know. And he's texting me like every 3 seconds about moves. He's a baseball junkie. Should they do this? Who's going to do that? I heard this rumor. Finally, I walk in there, and I'm like, during one of my breaks, I'm like, are you doing anything in regards to school? Oh, Dad, it's just a study period, Dad. It's just a study period. He does this for like 3 hours. I'm like, you're not in a study period for 3 hours. Whatever. I'm an end results guy,
He's a
you get
senior.
the updates every week. Yeah,
he's a senior.
Right. And you get the updates every week. So if he's tanking, then, you can talk to him then. I'm not going to plug him.
That is the worst thing ever. That's the worst thing ever for kids now is they send those updated grades. Like we get ours every Saturday morning, and I'll look at them and I'll say, wait a second, what's going on? He's like, oh, I'm fine. They didn't put it in yet. And sure enough, you'll see the grades at the end of the semester, and it's like, okay, like numbers that I never saw. Like,
Yeah. Oh.
2.5 was great back in the day.
Right. Plus, I would just at the end, I would just cram. It was like, oh my God, what do I got to get out of this class? Okay, and you just cram at the end.
Oh,
screw around for 8 of the 10 weeks.
Hey, let's lots of stuff to get into. Obviously, we're looking at cut down day coming up on Saturday in the NFL. We had trade deadline yesterday. You guys in the Bay Area might care about trade deadline. We don't because we're Seattle. Although they did we feel like I was part of it. Like they fleeced the San Diego Padres in that 7-player deal. But we'll wait and see. We've heard that before. But it does feel like they did a nice job there. Let me, on a serious note, what's going on with the Oakland A's? What do we know on this Tuesday? Because they were supposed to start a series with the Mariners.
Yeah.
And the first 2 games at least have been postponed. Now, they do play at the end of the year. They could do some double headers, I think, the last weekend. But they're not playing the first 2. Maybe they'll come here for 1 game on Thursday. But what do we know about the A's and the Rona?
Well, the second consecutive day, they haven't had any positive tests. So they should be good to go. And by the way, I ripped Major League Baseball at the beginning because I'm thinking there's no leadership, where there still probably isn't. And what are we doing? And I thought there was something in place. And why are we canceling all these games? I'll give them credit because nothing is perfect. But what they've done now to kind of have a system, okay, we do this and we're going to cancel that. And whether people like 7-inning doubleheaders or not, I'm not sure, and all the different rule changes. But you got to give them credit. The first weekend of Major League Baseball, Rob Manfred went to TV executives and said, look, you better have some backup programming. This may not work.
Yep.
And they've gotten to the point where we're a month out. We got a trade deadline behind us. This is going to work. They're potentially going to go into a bubble in LA and Texas. This is going to work. Knock on wood, this thing's going to work. They've done it.
Give me the update on the A's, and I'm going to go take that a step further in a second. What's the update?
I think they're fine. I think they're ready to go. Like you said,
it was just one person, right? Just one.
But yeah.
Just one person.
And it wasn't even a player. So it wasn't a player. It was part of the travel group, which that's going to happen. and then 2 consecutive days they've had
Okay.
the negative test, so they're good to go.
Well, I think what you said there, it goes back to the NFL. I mean, you're probably the same as me. I hear this over and over again. Hey, do you really think the NFL is going to play? Like, do you really think the NFL is going to play? And I think J.C. Treader, who's the NFLPA president, put out a thing yesterday, and I thought it was well said. You've been to the Niners facility. I've been to the Seahawks facility, and it is so buttoned down. And I think, by and large, because there is a template to look at, whether it's the bubble with the NBA and the NHL or whether it's the non-bubble with baseball. There is a template to look at for pro sports. And if you do, if you are careful, if there's an abundance of caution, which is another one of those big phrase words now, right? Key phrases. But if you do all those things, you can stay healthy and you can make this thing work. And I think the NFL, because of the money involved, especially for guys that have short careers, they want to play. And, so far the NFL, I think the Niners put a guy on COVID list yesterday, but for the most part, the NFL's done a great job so far.
Yeah, look, I give them a ton of credit. The thing I'm concerned about is, okay, they've gotten this part down, right? Training camp, they've got down. They're doing the testing every day. If people want to know, watch Hard Knocks. I mean, it's exactly what everybody is doing. They've got that part down. The thing that concerns me is, let's walk before we can run. I understand that they want to get as much revenue as possible. But even if they're going to bring in 10,000 fans, 20,000 fans, I think what they should do is let's wait, say, 2 weeks. Get the travel down. Okay, do we have that part down? Fine. Okay, now let's slowly – it's like a recipe. Let's slowly fold in the fans. I think – and I'm not talking competitively, whether Dallas or Kansas City or any of these places have fans. That's immaterial to me because I understand they have to make money. The problem to me is let's travel week 1. Oh, we did that. Let's get that down pat. Now let's fold in the fans. I think it's a mistake to bring in the fans week 1 because I think you're trying to go too fast.
Well, you brought up, baseball. I mean, they had all kinds of issues early on. It feels like for the most part, those things have subsided.
Gotten it down.
Yeah, they've figured it out. I mean, it also shows you that the bubble works. I mean, the NBA and the NHL have been just sensational. I mean, they've done what they needed to do. I think outside of guys going a little stir crazy at times, although now you get deep enough into the playoffs, you can bring guys in and families in and things like that. But it's still, the bubble does work.
No question. And in fact, you know what? I got a question for you. Did you see Jimmy Butler? He said he's not bringing his family in. Would you bring your family in, or would you? Speaking of family, would you, if you're a player, do you bring your family in, or if you're like Jimmy Butler said, this is a business trip, no family? What would you do?
It's hard to. I think it would depend on where they're at in terms of age. To be honest with you, I think that would be. I think that would be the case. You were gone. I mean, we've talked about it before. John and I worked together in Salt Lake for a few years. That's where we first met, and I think you had already moved either to Pittsburgh or Portland. I forget what you've been all across the country, but you'd already left. But I was doing the play-by-play for the hockey team when we first met, and I filled in at 1320, then did a show right after John did. And so that's where we met. But my main job for the most part there was to do hockey play-by-play for the hockey team, the AAA affiliate, the IHL, AHL team. Well, in 2002, when the Winter Olympics came, our hockey arena where we played, that was the hockey venue for the 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City. And so we were out of the building for about, I think it was like 80 days, like almost 3 months that we were out of the building and on the road. And I remember I had a 4-year-old daughter at the time. That's so long ago. She's 23 now, but yeah, a 4-year-old daughter. And I remember just grinding all summer thinking, man, I don't know if I can be away from, and I mean, my wife and I were still, we'd only been married a few years, so she still probably liked me a little more. And so it was, but especially with the daughters, like, I'm not sure if I can be one. And I got a job offer to go do radio full time. And I leaped at that opportunity. And a lot of it was because I didn't want to be gone. They weren't going to bring us back. They were going to put us on the road. We're going to be back at, in the middle of nowhere in AHL land, and I don't know, Hershey, Pennsylvania and Fort Wayne, Indiana. And, I mean, all those places, Utica, New York, and we weren't coming back. And I was like, I'm not sure if I can do that. So that's why when I say with a bubble, I can understand with those guys being away. If you have a young family for so long, that's brutal. Like, that is really, really hard.
Because your kids change, like you said. Now, your junior and senior year. I mean, that's not that you don't want to be around, but they just don't want to be around you. But when you're young, when your kids are young, they change so much, and you don't want to miss certain aspects of them growing up. I think Fred VanVleet, they showed the other day, and his kids hadn't seen him for 2 months, or Damian Lillard. got out of the bubble and he was flying home with his kid and that kind of
Right.
stuff. So yeah. Anyway.
I don't know. It's hard. We've got a hell of a month coming up, huh? This is like we
Yeah.
went from no sports to how about this month of September?
Well, but this is an old sports radio debate: is what's the best month, right, of the year as far as sports? We always debate that, but I don't think there's any question. Not only the best sports month of this year, maybe of any year. Now, I'd imagine that Seattle is getting into the Stanley Cup Finals because of the team is coming, but the NBA Finals, I don't know how much you care about that, but all these different things, the start of the NFL, the start, and again, without Pac-12 football, yeah, it's different, but college football is coming back. People are still going to watch it no matter where you are, just because that's how it is. But college football, pro football, Stanley Cup Finals, NBA Finals, French Open, US Open, like all these different things are happening this September. This might be, in fact, I think it is the best sports month of all time. And that's, we always do that in sports radio, but this actually might be true.
I would agree with you, except for I think we're having a hard time up here. The whole college football thing. Well, first of all, the NFL starting's big. There's a lot of fans that are upset, obviously, because they can't go to the games. My producer, Kevin Shockey's got a great point, and it's so true. You live in an area that's 2 or 3 times as big as us. But, for us, there's 3.5 million people here. 69,000 people go to a Seahawk game. So the percentage of people affected by not going to the game is like less than 1%. And so that's a non-factor. But I think college football, that's got people torn up here. Now, you guys have 2 teams there you don't care about, right? Nobody cares about Cal and Stanford.
It's not a college football. Yeah, it's not a college football area.
But up here, 2 new coaches in Jimmy Lake at Washington and Rolovich over at Wazoo, and they're just like non-factors. I'm having a hard time. I don't know this whole college football thing, I think now more than ever, because we're in September, it's hitting home what a freaking mess it is. The fact
especially because others are playing.
That's why,
you feel left out because others are playing. The Big Ten is waffling back and forth. To be honest, and maybe this is the best of my emotion, or my emotions making the best of me. I want to be safe. There's no question. In our 2 areas, we've talked about this a ton. We're hit the hardest, but I didn't see, I guess, the harm in waiting. In waiting to see what everybody else was going to do. I know that the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, and they were applauded for it. And I know there's politics involved and a ton of money involved. And really, that's what it comes down to. It's not about the safety of the athletes. It's not about the student athlete. It never is, never has been, never will be. I'd like them to play. And then if you have to shut it down, then you shut it down. But I think they at least should have seen, okay, now I don't know if they have the money, because what people are not realizing about the NFL, this is millions and millions of dollars. It's not cheap to have every guy walk in every single day and have to go through what they have to go through. This is not cheap. So I don't know if college football can afford it. Well, they're not paying the players, so obviously they can't afford it, and they're paying these coaches millions and millions of dollars. Can college students age 18 to 22, can they socially distance, be mature like NFL players? I seriously doubt it. But in retrospect, and again, maybe it's just emotion, I would have liked to have seen them try.
Well, I'm with you. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction, and they did it because the Pac-12 did it because the Big Ten did it.
Right.
Because the Pac-12 has no leadership. We know that. Larry Scott's a joke, and they did it because now the one thing with the Pac-12, and I think the Big Ten falls in the same category. They both, and rightfully so. All joking aside, they both consider themselves elite in terms of the Power 5 conferences with education. If you just yes, there's Duke and there's Vanderbilt and there's Wake Forest, but honestly, if the Pac-12 with in terms of their schools and the Big Ten with their schools, those are the elite academic and research institutions in the country as far as the Power 5. There's more of those in those conferences, and I think because of that, there was more pressure on from the presidents to make that call to be safe, as opposed to being kind of a little bit more rogue and reckless. But I'm with you.
I think they thought though that everyone was going to follow their lead.
Yeah.
If the SEC says we're not playing football, they're like LeBron James. Okay, we won't play. But the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, I think, overestimated their value. They thought if we lead the way here, everyone will follow us. No, they won't. The SEC's not following you. Now, if the SEC was the only one to play and went rogue, that would be different. But when they say that they're going to possibly play in the spring, A, we know this. We don't know if it's going to be any better. And B, so what is it going to be? The Pac-12 and the Big Ten, and they're going to play for their own quote-unquote championship? That's not going to work.
But John Lund joining us, brought to you by Cascade Esquire. But the biggest problem with that is that the Big Ten now with this pressure that maybe they'll play late
they might
fall.
play
So you would have 3 Power 5 conferences playing and some other non-Power 5 conferences like Conference USA and American Athletic or whatever they are. You'd have a couple of those conferences playing in the fall, a regular schedule. A little bit later, they pushed it back till the end of September. Then you would have the Big Ten starting on its own, by itself, playing whatever they're playing for, and they would play December, January, February. And then, in theory, the Pac-12 would play in the spring by itself, and then the FCS schools, which are the only ones that have their blank together, the former 1AA schools, they're the ones that first came out. If we go back a little bit, first part of August, and the FCS schools came out and said, listen, we have a true championship in Division I AA football or FCS football. We have a true national championship, and we have to be all in or all out. And they made the decision.
Right.
The Big Sky led the way. The Big Sky said, hey, we're going to, and as soon as that happened, everyone's shooting for the spring. Everyone's on the same playing field. Everyone's in this. Meanwhile, college football at the top end is fragmented. I think it's going to be weird, strange, and frankly, if you're a Pac-12 player, how pissed are you that you're sitting there, you've worked out all summer, and you're looking around going, well, geez, that's cool. The Big 12's playing. The SEC is playing. The ACC is playing. Oh, and then my buddy at Purdue in the Big Ten, they're playing in November and December, and we may or may not play in the spring. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Well, and you hit it right on the head. And this comes from our government to all the sports. The lack of leadership has been appalling. And I don't want to get political because everybody hates that. Everybody uses sports as a release. I totally get it. But we're all intertwined at this point. The leadership at the top of our government all the way to college football. This weekend in baseball, some teams did the 42 thing. Some teams had regular numbers. The A's had a doubleheader in which the first game they wore the Jackie Robinson 42, which is awesome. And in the second game, they wore regular numbers. Some on Friday did it. Some on Saturday did it. Some on Sunday did it. There was no leadership from Rob Manfred to say, this is what we're going to do. You're on your own. Hey, States, you're on your own. Hey, college football, you're on your own. Hey, baseball, you're on your own. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy. But leadership starts at the top. This is what we're going to do. There's been none of that.
Wait, are you telling me that our country is lacking leadership and divided?
But it all runs from the top, right?
Yes,
they're looking at our government saying, well, they're fragmented. It's fine that we're fragmented. College football needed to get together with all the commissioners and say, we're either going to do this, or we're going to do that. Baseball finally figured it out. We're either going to do this, we're going to do that. NBA, we're going to be in a bubble. Look how it's worked. The NHL, we're going to be in a bubble. Look how it's worked. You just have to have everybody pulling on the same rope. And once that happened, it's amazing how things can work. But college football is the latest example of everyone spraying everywhere, kind of like my hair when I wake up, actually my hair all the time, just at 10 different directions for everybody. And it's unbelievable. Like, you used to think when you were a kid that business people knew what they were doing. Hey, look at that guy with a fancy suit and a briefcase walking around. He looks smart. Everyone is an idiot. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Everyone is an idiot. And you finally figure it out the older you get.
Led by the two of us along the way. I can't believe it.
Don't take advice from me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys are in the Bay Area. You got Cal and Stanford. You got the two smartest schools in the conference, right? You guys should figure it out down there. And you got the smartest coach in college football, and David Shaw, right? So,
he'll tell you. Larry Scott is an abomination. I mean, he must have naked pictures and more naked pictures and more naked pictures of everybody. I mean, how he is the highest paid, and he lives about 5 miles from me, and believe me, I'm in the slums. He's got this beautiful house that he got a loan on, and this guy, the Pac-12 networks are in the most expensive part of San Francisco. They just laid off a ton of people. I mean,
they laid off basically everybody, right?
Everybody. Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable.
All right. Well, next week.
You've already talked about that.
I think I don't know if this is our last one contractually. We got big contracts to look at, so hopefully we'll talk again in the near future.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we got to get it. We got to have one more to do like a pre-NFL. Yeah. Niners v. Seahawks, because this is going to be a fun year.
I agree.
Really
we'll hook up at some point next week. You have a good long weekend. Hopefully you get the great pink grapefruit Cascade ice water. Big thanks to them. All right. I'll see you.
See you, brother.